another episode of the Conflict Resolution Network from Southwest Conflict Resolution Network. That's the one I'm talking about. Welcome back. We're here with Wendy Mayfield. She is a financial in financial industry, and she also has her master's degree in conflict resolution and dispute management. So we're talking today about family matters financially and how to parlay that into a kind of a conversation about when couples come to do to do financial planning, how sometimes it seems like when they're talking about their marriages and they're talking about money, it's a big stressor.
It's a huge stressor. Hey, yeah. Josh, good to see you.
Thank you.
So money, as we all know, is really symbolic of a lot of things. It's symbolic of power, security, what your future is going to be like, comfort and safety. And each individual in a relationship has a different idea of how money plays into those special needs. And when we're challenged on our ideas about security and power, then we get afraid and we react emotionally.
Sure.
And as a financial consultant, it's really important to be aware of those things and realize that the financial plan is not about numbers. It's mostly about how the couple thinks about money together and separately, and trying to get them on the same page so they can make a sound plan.
So when people come in for financial planning, when do you see the arguments begin to start?
Sometimes, so I deal mostly with people on the phone right now. And sometimes they are, somebody will call in and say, well, it's my husband usually handles it, or my wife does all of these things, and I really don't know what they're doing. And so it's important, if I'm talking to whoever I'm talking to make sure they're clear on what's going on with their finances and they're in agreement with what's happening. So sometimes it'll be, well, I just don't know anything about this.
Sure.
One person will be more silent than the other. And as you know, mediation, that's kind of always a clue that there's something else going on if one person's talking more than another. So you kind of just pick up on those clues, and then you make sure you engage with the person who either isn't there or isn't as vocal by asking questions, by trying to talk to them to find out what the whole picture is.
And do you feel like sometimes you maybe start a conversation, like, I don't want to say you start the argument, but as you're giving more information, because I know for me and my house, I handle most of the finances, not because of ability or because of that's what we decided to do, but just the way we divide things out, it just made sense to have one person responsible for this and one for the other. And so my wife knows a lot about what we spend and what we buy. We have a shared account, we have a shared credit card, all those different things. There's no secrets, but I don't think she knows how all the pieces work together. Not because she can't, because she's just not, that's not part of the realm that she deals with day to day. So I think if she called you, she would have the same response of, I'm not really sure, you have to talk to my husband.
Right.
But it wouldn't be out of a lack of ability.
Right.
But if you were trying to explain those things to her, do you feel like you're kind of starting the argument a little bit that helps for better understanding in the future?
It can be. So if it's in a situation like yours where, one partner generally just takes over because it's easier to have one person handle it, then a lot of times when I talk to people who aren't the primary money manager in their home, when I do explain a little bit about what's going on in their account, what they're seeing, why they're seeing things happen the way they are, they're usually appreciative because maybe they don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but they are interested because it's part of their future.
Yeah.
And they're glad to have somebody just kind of explain and then ask those questions too that maybe they don't bring up at home or they don't think about. So I enjoy doing that part as well.
Yeah, it's one of those kind of deals, with money involved, especially when people are talking about it. Do you feel that people often tend to become hesitant to speak about money when they're talking to you, or not so much?
At first, I was probably more afraid to talk to people about their money. Because it is a private issue for for most people. But as a financial professional, you have to ask questions and know what's going on so you can help them. So I've become less worried about that part. And actually, most people are very open about what they're trying to do and what they want to do.
Yeah.
If you're curious and if you're listening, not to be a judge, but just to really find out what's important to them and then help them make it happen, whatever that looks like.
That's where your mediation skills kind of come in, and you're able to kind of like get to the balcony, as it was, and see the grand picture about what's really happening. They may be saying one thing, but their actions are giving you a different story.
Right.
How do people normally react if you're saying, hey, your actions aren't backing up? Have you ever had to give someone like hard advice or a tough thing to tell someone?
Yes. So I've talked to clients who, when I ask them what their strategy is, so they have a portfolio, and I can see by my internal tools if it's a moderate portfolio or an aggressive portfolio and the range. And so when I talk to them and I ask them, so what kind of investor are you? Are you long-term? Are you short-term? Are you moderate? Are you conservative? A lot of times they'll say, well, I'm a pretty conservative investor, but their portfolio doesn't reflect that. It reflects a more aggressive approach. And so I feel it is my responsibility to call their attention to it so they know. A lot of people don't realize. And so when I do, a lot of times people are grateful, and then they say, well, what should I do? And then we can get into those conversations. But sometimes people are defensive, and they'll say, well, I know, but I just like doing it this way. So I talked to a client the other day who had a couple $100,000 just in cash. Yeah. Not invested in anything. And they were getting about 0.6% in cash. Yeah. And to me, that's a red flag that they're afraid of something. Yeah. So I asked him, what his strategy was. Why did he have this much cash? And he was concerned about the market dropping like it did in 2008. Yeah. And so he pulled all his money out and just wanted it in cash. So then I'm able to talk to him about, well, there are safe solutions that you could put your money in that will earn you some interest, but keep it as liquid as possible if that's what you really want. And so then you're able to talk to, what do they really want? They want safety. Yeah. They don't want their money sitting there not doing anything. They just want safety. So then you're able to offer solutions to them that they may or may not decide to do. So you have a speech that you do, or a presentation that you do called "It's Not All About the Money," and part of that is you're telling people that when you're fighting about finances, it's not really about just the cash. Right. What does that mean? It means that the inherent symbols in money are what is coming up in an argument. So, and the way we have grown up with money, each of us has a different experience with it from the way we grew up. And so we bring that into a relationship. And a lot of times we don't examine why we think about things the way we do. And so many times if a couple sits down to make financial decisions and they start arguing about it, it's not the math problem that's in front of them. It's, well, if I don't get to purchase this, then deep down it means that I'm not important or I'm not secure. Yeah. And without really addressing what's really going on, then the couples are going to continue to fight. Yeah. So you would say it's more about the values, right? More about the values of what the dollar sign represents, or whether, if I can't drive this car, what that means for me. Right. If I can't have these things, what that means for us and our relationship.
If we're just going to be stuck inside for 2 years, rebuilding our nest egg and not going out on these trips,
right?
So it's one of those kinds of things. And again, it's not that's not your place. You're not a marriage counselor when they come in here.
No.
But when those fights do happen, do you tend to like take a step away, or do you prod them in the right direction?
Well, I generally ask them more questions. So let's say they are rebuilding their nest egg. One partner wants to like cut out all extraneous spending, and the other isn't comfortable with that. So we just talk about, so why is that important to you to cut everything out and to be so austere? And
Sure.
And they'll give their answer. And then I'll ask the other partner, so what's important to you about taking 2 vacations a year or spending money on such and such? And, and if there's goodwill involved, and then they will talk to each other about, oh, well, maybe we can do both. Maybe we can scale down the vacation, but because that's important to you, maybe we can rearrange. Or because austerity is important to you, maybe I can pack my lunch for work instead of going out to lunch. And
Sure.
so that opens the door for them to be able to make the decisions, because it's not my money. It's not my decisions to make for clients. It's totally up to them, but they need that door open for them. So they can make those decisions.
So you're kind of saying basically giving people the options and kind of prodding them to dig deeper into the sublying, the values of what you're doing.
Right.
I was looking at your LinkedIn article about with the same title, and you had the Maslow's hierarchy of needs on there. Tell me, how does that play into to your clients as you're talking to them about the finances and conflict? So
the hierarchy of needs is a pyramid that most of us have been familiar with, about that we all need for us to feel like successful individuals. We all need our basic physical needs met. Money obviously puts a roof over our head and buys food. We also need our emotional needs met. So having a job or having money can mean that, I'm safe emotionally, that I can make my own decisions. I'm not dependent on somebody else to make decisions. And then we get into the self-actualization needs, the needs that aren't bare bones, but that gives added value to life. And again, money can figure into that as well. So if you like to travel, if that's something, it's not a basic human need, but it might be something that's important for your personal growth. Well, money has to figure into that. So money figures into all those basic needs that we have. And as long as we can kind of identify that this is where we're coming from, especially when we get triggered about money, when we get upset about money, then we can look at like the real solutions.
You just said triggered by money. For people who maybe watching this that don't know, what do you mean by triggered by money?
So triggering in our terminology is when you have a severe emotional reaction to something that's way out of the norm, or it's way out of balance to what the situation really is. So let's say, my husband goes and spends $50 on, I don't know, a baseball hat or something. And I just completely have a cow flip out. And I wouldn't normally flip out about him buying anything, but maybe this thing is what triggers me. And so when we're triggered, we have these emotional reactions, and it shuts down our thinking part of the brain, and we're only operating out of emotion. So we can't make good decisions in that mindset. And we act irrationally in that mindset.
There's an old proverb that money can't buy happiness. Do you believe that to be true?
Partially, yes. So ultimately, we're responsible for our happiness. I don't think it's the amount of money that makes you happy. As long as your basic needs are met, and that does require money, then I think happiness is something else entirely. Having a lot of money, I found when I work with clients, makes life a lot more complicated for them. In their family, in their personal business. Takes a lot more attention and time to pay attention to a larger sum of money. So that may or may not be happiness for some people.
Like you could be happy whether you have 30 million or 30,000.
Right.
You could be happy. It's just a matter of finding your balance in that arena. I always laugh at people who say, you know what, money can't buy happiness. Like, you know what? I've been a poor college kid, and I've been okay.
Right.
And being okay is way better than being a poor college kid. So,
right.
The stresses that go along with having no money, definitely can't outweigh the stress of having too much.
Right.
So it's one of those things. If there was somebody who wanted to like find you or reach out and contact you for financial help, where would they go for that? Just go to your LinkedIn.
I would say
page?
Just contact me through LinkedIn because you can see more details, and that's Wendy Mayfield at LinkedIn.com.
And then do you do like conflict management and stuff as well on the side, or do you just do financial consulting?
I do conflict management coaching on the side as well that doesn't necessarily have to do with money situations. And I've coached coworkers and just other people who want to either prepare for a difficult conversation, or maybe they had a conflict interaction that they're not happy about, and next time they want to do something better. So I do a lot of that too.
See, I remember you and I were both in, I think we were both in conflict coaching at SMU. And you actually went off and excelled in it. Like, I just took the entry level class and got the check.
Right.
You went in, and I think you trained extensively with that.
Yeah, and I got certified in the synergy method. So
so that's great. So again, reach out to Wendy Mayfield. You'll find her online. It's LinkedIn.com. Wendy Mayfield. Have a little MA beside her name. A lot of stuff. You reach out if you have any questions on finances, on conflict, or on coaching. Great person to know. Well, Wendy, thank you so much for coming in and talking with us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
The digital destination for premium talk radio.